I'm a believer that this team's going to win the national championship. And of course, yes, a season like this has to have a name, the season of dreams.
So JUCK over with Menace to Sports.
And if we allow them to devalue it, we lose a lot of what makes college football special. Don't let them do it. Don't let them devalue what it means to you. The Ohio State Buckeyes, the 2024 national champs, will be remembered for how they came out of that. And welcome into JUCK on Bucks on a celebration and sad Sunday. The Buckeyes today celebrated the 2024 national championship in the shoe. And that was about a 30,000 fan turnout for that celebration. And shout out to those fans who went out there in the cold to celebrate and make them feel special. I think that's awesome. About the same turnout as the celebration for the 2014 national championship team. And I'm guessing it was a lot colder today. So a big day, a celebration day, and also a not so great day. Rumors have been swirling for a couple of weeks now that Jim Knowles may be going to Oklahoma. And I thought this was just stemming from rumor because it made so little sense from a football standpoint to me. And I made a whole video about it. From a professional standpoint, a guy in Jim Knowles' position to make a lateral move to be the defensive coordinator at another program that's not really in good shape with a head coach who's a defensive guy in Brent Venables, after just winning a national championship, it just didn't make sense. And let's be honest, it's not even really a lateral move to go to Oklahoma as the defensive coordinator. It's a downgrade. They're in a bad spot. You just won a national championship. His system is rather complex. He's at a place where everybody knows it now after year 3. His defense was fantastic. He loves his players. He's got the challenge of a younger crew next year who know his system. None of it made sense from a football standpoint. He's the head coach of the defense. I thought there was no way. Rumors at the time were floating that his fiance lived in Oklahoma with 2 younger kids, and she didn't want to move. So I thought this was all stemming from Oklahoma fans being excited and latching onto that rumor. But I was wrong. I was wrong on a couple of things. Number one, I was able to confirm that that wasn't just rumor. His fiance or girlfriend actually does live in Oklahoma, does have 2 high school age kids. And that certainly wouldn't be the first time we've ever seen someone, their personal life trumps their professional life. Obviously, it's a great job being the defensive coordinator at Oklahoma. And if you can have that job and go, have a happier personal life, okay, that makes sense. Then Penn State emerged as a candidate for Jim Knowles. And at that point, it became clear that this wasn't a case of Jim Knowles being happy at Ohio State, but this personal life issue in Oklahoma is pulling at his heartstrings. This was one of 2 things: a leverage play from his agent to get more money out of Ohio State, or he's fairly interested in leaving. And he was fairly interested in leaving, as Jim Knowles is now leaving, but not to Oklahoma. It's now been confirmed from Matt Zenitz of CBS, Pete Thamel of ESPN, and others that Jim Knowles has accepted the defensive coordinator position at Penn State. A lateral move in conference, further away from the girlfriend, I might add, in Oklahoma. And he will take over Tom Allen's former position as the defensive coordinator at Penn State after Tom Allen made a lateral move to take the defensive coordinator position at Clemson. $3.1 million is the reported salary per year, which now makes him the highest paid assistant coach in college football history. The Buckeyes made a push to keep him. It wasn't enough. And how does this happen, and where do the Buckeyes go from here? We got a pretty good idea on both fronts. The stories of what went on behind the scenes here will leak out, continue to leak, and some already have. But this is a pretty tight coaching staff, and Jim Knowles wasn't really a part of that. He wasn't interested in being part of the group. That's not uncommon to have a couple guys like that on a staff of 11 dudes, 12 dudes. He's not the friendliest guy. He'd rather sit in his office and grind, and I don't see any problem with that from a defensive coordinator. Patrick Murphy of Bucknuts reported last week that he had been talking to some people down at the national championship game on the national end of things, and they were saying that Knowles and Day weren't getting along. The thing with Knowles and Larry Johnson has never been peachy. It was never going to be. those two guys are kind of very similar in personality, old vets, kind of gruff guys that don't work great with others. And what started as maybe just some differing opinions on how to run a defense appears to have kind of turned into more of a personal thing, to the point where Murphy reports when they were celebrating all the coaches after the Cotton Bowl win, those two kept their distance from each other, and it was apparent enough for him to take notice of and report on. And he's not, you get to know these guys' styles as they report. Not the type to kick up nonsense. That's not his style at all. He doesn't get involved in the gossipy kind of thing. So when he said that, I kind of took note. Now, we've discussed many times here on the show, and you've heard it on other shows, I'm sure, the rift between Larry Johnson and Jim Knowles, and to what extent that is, or the situation with Jim Knowles not having authority or not really being able to run his defense totally how he wants to run it because of the way Larry Johnson runs the defensive line. And for a long time, many people thought that was just nonsense and rumor, but it's true. And it has been, confirmed by the most respected people in Ohio State journalism that it is true. That is the way things were going. I did a show not long ago, or not long before the season started, about just how ridiculous that is, just on premise, to have a defensive coordinator not be able to run his defense the way he wants to run it because of the way the defensive line coach wants to run his defensive line. And it's ridiculous. That said, I believe Jim Knowles came into this situation knowing that was going to be the case ahead of time, and he was okay with it. And he was going to do what he needed to do to build around that four-man front and the way things were going to go up front. And over time, it appears that has festered with Jim Knowles. I've talked a lot about the changes that the defense made since the Oregon game, the first one. And it was a pretty embarrassing performance by the defensive unit. Not because you got beat on a few big plays, but the way you got beat. Not being lined up in time, getting totally smoked at times, poor tackling, zero pressure with your four-man front, zero attempt to get any pressure in any way with those four men, no creativity, simulated pressure was being executed poorly. It was just bad. It was just a bad defensive performance. And stories are now coming out today, for instance, from Alex Gleitman of Letterman Row, that after that game, Ryan Day was pissed, and rightfully so. And he reported today, since coming to Ohio State, there is absolute truth to Knowles not seeing eye to eye with defensive line coach Larry Johnson. I believe it started philosophically in how they both approach the defense, but I do think it evolved to be a personal issue between the two parties. Knowles has been on the staff for 3 years with Johnson and even signed an extension last year knowing Johnson would be on staff. So I want to be clear, this isn't the reason he left, but it does play a role in just a build up of things. What I do think the main root of Knowles seeking employment elsewhere after winning the title with Ohio State this season is the relationship with Ohio State head coach Ryan Day. I think there's been some issues from Knowles towards Day over the past few years regarding not being able to fully operate the defense the way he wanted to, due to those philosophical differences with Larry Johnson. But from what I'm told, this is more about the two sides really going at it a bit after Ohio State's loss to Oregon back in October. So you have this poor performance, and publicly, Ryan Day talked about all the changes they were making on defense after that Oregon game. They had the bye week. They come out. We see a lot of these changes. Apparently, the way Ryan Day came at him, Jim Knowles took a little personally. And to be honest, if you put yourself in that situation that Knowles was in, you might take it a little personally too. I mean, you got the head coach coming after you for a poor performance, but you're kind of hamstrung. You're only allowed to do so much leading up to that point. And we know that at that point, the reins came off. He was allowed to do whatever the heck he wanted. So you handcuffed me as the defensive coordinator, and now you want to come at me when we don't have a great performance. I get it. I can totally get it from his standpoint. However, we're adults here, man. You know what I mean? Like, we can get through this. At any rate, it worked out. They won the national championship. They won't be running it back, and that's a damn shame. Jim Knowles was excellent. Obviously, he had excellent football players, but he just seemed like a great fit with that cast of characters on that defense this year. It was a performance that was just astounding the back half of the season through the playoff run. And I was really looking forward to seeing what he could do with this core, with Caleb Downs, IGB, and Sonny Styles coming back, and a couple of really experienced guys in Kenyatta Jackson and Caden Curry at defensive end. This is just a real bummer, man. It's a real bummer. So he takes a defensive coordinator job in the Big Ten. And no knock to Penn State, but they're not Ohio State. This is a clear downgrade. $3.1 million is nice. I'm sure Ohio State matched that number. So he really wanted to go. He really did. Losing your coordinators or any assistant coach after winning a national championship is common. We've watched Saban do it over and over again. We've just watched Dan Lanning. He was the co-defensive coordinator at Georgia. Go take the Oregon job from there. Like, that's the thing. You're going up. You're getting a promotion. Lateral moves, man. This is wild. This really is wild. So, that's where we're at. Penn State this year, by the way, this is an all-in year for them. They got a bunch of guys coming back, though not their two best in Abdul Carter and Tyler Warren. Those guys are both leaving, but they returned Drew Aller. They added some receivers. Nick Singleton and Katron Allen come back. Denai Dennis Sutton comes back. And they're trying to put together what they saw Michigan do in 2023, Ohio State in 2024, just a roster of full-grown dudes who've been in your system forever. Let's get them back and take that run. And now they're bringing in Knowles, which, sounds great. Hey, this is the national championship winning coach. But Knowles, he runs a pretty complex deal. And, I don't know that sounds like the greatest move to me on an all-in year, to be honest. Penn State's defense, by the way, they were the number 6 defense in the year of the number 6 defense in the country last year. They've had like 3 defensive coordinators over the past 5 years and have maintained a really good defense. So it seems like they got things down. They got things down, whatever they're doing in Penn State. Where do the Buckeyes go from here? Well, the chatter is they're going right where I thought they were going to go when I said this in June.
What was one of the underrated moves Ohio State made in your eyes this offseason?
Matt Guerrieri. Dude, Matt Guerrieri. Yes. An amazing mind. Knowles' right-hand man. And honestly, I think that he's tremendously underrated, and he's a guy that's really going to pay dividends. Who knows how long Knowles is going to stay here. Maybe he leaves. Maybe Guerrieri's the guy that keeps that rolling with that system. I don't know, man. I just got a really good feeling about this guy. I really do. And I think it's really flown under the radar. That's right. Matt Guerrieri. Those in the know are floating that quite a bit. So who is Matt Guerrieri? If you haven't really looked into him much, let's pull up Matt Guerrieri's resume. Matt Guerrieri, by the way, a Buckeye by birth from Willoughby, Ohio, Northeast Ohio. So we're talking about an Ohio guy, which always feels good to me. The safeties coach at Ohio State, 35 years old, played safety at Davison. His coaching career started in 2011, 2012 to 14. He was a GA at Duke, 2015 to 17, the safeties coach at Duke, before he moved into the co-defensive coordinator role from 2018 to 2021. Then he comes to Ohio State as an analyst, leaves to go to Indiana for a year in 2023 as the co-defensive coordinator, comes back to Ohio State as the safeties coach. That's Matt Guerrieri. Now, this is a really smart guy. I think he is a really hardworking guy. And obviously he knows Knowles' system inside and out. You don't got to change anything. You just got a new guy calling the shots. There's a lot of people who are not going to like this at all. I'm sure of it. They're going to want somebody who's a big name in coaching. And I get it. I usually feel the same. But in this circumstance, I don't think I would be too incredibly upset about this. I really don't. Ohio State should be able and should always strive for a top 5 position coach at that position in college football. That's always been my philosophy. If you're
if your linebackers coach isn't a top 5 coach, isn't a top 10 coach, you should be looking to upgrade that position. Like, that's just always the way I've felt. Defensive coordinator is obviously a huge position, and you would love to be able to go find a Jim Knowles, right? A big name top guy out there and bring him in. You would love to. Can you get it done? Do you want to get it done? I don't know. I don't know. I don't know that there's anybody that comes to mind to me that would make perfect sense that they could go out and get that done right now. And what Ryan Day said today at the celebration was he is a rising superstar. Let me get the exact quote. One of the brightest minds in college football, and I'm telling you, a star in the making. Those are Ryan Day's words today at the celebration. And the fact that he said that today at the celebration kind of backs up what we're hearing, that he is maybe the leader in the clubhouse to take on this role. And it makes a lot of sense. It makes a lot of sense. And again, I know a lot of people aren't going to like that. They're going to want a big name brand guy, and I get it. But it does make sense. And it took 3 years for this crew to really be able to orchestrate this system great. You got these young guys, and you could take these young guys and say, all right, it's a perfect time to bring in a guy with a new system. Let them play their best, but it's not going to be a national championship year. Do you want to waste this year with a brand new defensive coordinator, a brand new system? Waste a year at Caleb Downs, waste a year at Jeremiah Smith. It's pretty enticing to keep everything the same and promote him. I can see the argument on both sides. I can. I really can. It's not going to be something I'm torn up about either way. At this point, when it comes to Ryan Day making this decision, he wants to win more than anybody, and he just won a national championship. If he wants to stick with Matt Guerrieri and bring him up into that role, and he thinks he's a rising superstar in the profession, I don't think there's anything cooler than when you identify and promote someone and they become a rising superstar. And I will add that I think Keenan Bailey was fantastic this year, a guy who we were kind of concerned about at the beginning of the year. Yeah, he's been around for a while. He's never coached tight ends. Now he's the tight end coach at one of the premier programs in the country. For what he had in that room, I think he did a fantastic job, and he has killed it in recruiting. So, looking like Matty G. I would love to hear your guys' thoughts, and obviously we'll talk about this more throughout the week. But I do want to say before we sign off today, I got a notification from YouTube saying it is the 1-year anniversary of the very first video you ever uploaded, which means today we start year 2 of Juck on Bucks. And I want to thank you guys for making year 1 of Juck on Bucks. I didn't think we'd do this a year. I didn't think we'd do it in year 2, but year 1 has been obviously a ton of fun, or I wouldn't keep doing it as much as I do. I love it. And it would not be the fun without you. And I appreciate you guys so much. It's been awesome. Thank you so much for enjoying this year with me, especially those of you who've been around from the beginning. You guys know who you are. Really appreciate it, man. Really appreciate it. And very humbled by all the nice comments I get every day. And you guys are the best. So let me hear what you have to say in the comments about this situation. And I will talk to you soon. Juck on Bucks out.